All right. For week 8 of the National Football League season here in 2021, we're going to do something a little different for our movement play of the week. For the first time ever, I'm going to do more of a vlog type of breakdown and analysis here for you, just to try a little spin on something different and see what we can get to emerge and materialize here. Hopefully, to be able to give a different medium of communicating some of these ideas, particularly around the affordances that are present, that are guiding and channeling the movement solutions of the most masterful and skillful players in the league. But also the affordances present. So I'm able to show how that information that links the problem and solution is specifying the potential opportunities for the skillful mover that we're featuring. For week 8, we're looking at the San Francisco 49ers at the Chicago Bears. The constraints here are Soldier Field, obviously. Late October, it's on Halloween, so it's chilly, but not as chilly as it's going to be in a month or two. Of course, the grass at Soldier Field is not necessarily anything to write home to mom about. It sometimes doesn't afford a really solid footing for players. Players are playing around with cleats quite often if they want to wear stud or if they want to wear more of a molded bottom. But for offensive skill players, this creates a little bit of an advantage, specifically because the offensive player knows where it is that he wants to go, as opposed to the defensive player who is merely trying to perceive and act accordingly based on the way that the offensive player is behaving. So we kind of see this play here. It's fourth quarter, only 10 minutes left to go in the game, just a little bit less. It's 4th and 1, and Justin Fields, quarterback for the Bears, number one here, who you can see right in the middle under center, is somebody who's gotten a little bit of scrutiny, specifically because he kind of took the reins at a time here for the Bears where they're trying to really press and find an identity. But he has struggled at times, mostly because of the supporting cast around him. As we're about to see today, he's a highly adaptable cat that, if given the opportunity, and given sort of the reins to be able to have some opportunity to improvise if and when need be, you're going to see that he's an A+ athlete. And particularly, he's an A+ mover. And so we take up this play again, 4th and 1. They're down by 7. And Justin Fields has the Bears driving. They're from the 22-yard line, 21, 22-yard line here. And we're just going to let it play through first, and then we're going to kind of take our time, go through it problem by problem. And when I say problem by problem, remember that I mean local problems nested within one another to create a bigger global, more macro problem. So even though I'm going to single those out for a nice and neat way of investigation, realize that it's one continuously regulated, dynamically unfolding movement problem solving process. So let's just let it go through here. You can see I have it at 50% speed for you all right now. It'll just be an easier way for us to really kind of take a peek at this once we dive in. And I'll kind of play around with this if I decide to use this as a medium of communicating these ideas. But I'll just let you continue to watch Justin Fields and what he's doing here and how he's doing it. So that's one view. Let's go ahead and see if we can kind of skip ahead and find another view here. This is, of course, the TV copy on NFL YouTube, to give NFL YouTube a little bit of credit here so they don't come after me with any sort of legal actions. And I apologize here. You'll see now from a totally different camera view. And this is something that I certainly want to make a mention to for any of you who are really utilizing film to study and analyze the movement problem solving dynamics within any sport. The more camera angles you can get, as well as the different speeds you can watch things unfold at, the more complete picture you're likely to gain on the player's movement problem solving processes and sort of this problem solving story. For us to be able to create this perspective that is accurately and adequately telling the movement problem solving story for that player is really what we're trying to do. It's only there that we can allow that investigation to potentially inform how we may want to go about attacking it and addressing it, if we were to ever try to facilitate similar types of movement skills for a respective player. So, watching this now from this camera angle, unique camera angle at that, and we'll watch Justin Fields attune, adapt, and ultimately solve this problem in his own improvisational type of fashion. Some really cool setups here that we're going to try to take our time and walk through and highlight. But some stuff that you're seeing a player well beyond his years when given the opportunity to make a play in the open field. So if we head back to the start and we look sort of local problem by local problem here, there's a few unique things that I definitely want to highlight, particularly as it revolves around the information present and how that information is specifying the affordances for Justin Fields to act in a given way. Remember, this is a constant, continuous, intertwined, interwoven problem solving between perceptions, intentions, and actions. And I want to highlight, just like I have throughout the course of the first 7 weeks of the NFL season, what Fields could be attuning to, what he could be adapting around, and how those degrees of freedom at a perceptual, cognitive, and action level are potentially being coordinated, controlled, and organized to help and allow him solve this respective problem. So once he gives the jet sweep fake here and he goes on his rollout, we're seeing him obviously have to key in on specifying information in particular from a number of different things. First off, his own running back, his own teammate, where my mouse is here on number 24, Khalil Herbert, I believe that is. Number 91, the defensive end, who is really the read guy for Fields here, is going to both represent key specifying information sources that are going to channel the movement solution that emerges for Fields. And I'm just going to go moment by moment here. You can see he's not particularly looking at him, though I believe from a periphery standpoint, he can feel, he can pick up, but he can also feel exactly where it is Armstead is in relation and reference to him. I think even here now, within this 2 yards away, 2.5 yards away, and I would be able to next gen stats that to determine the exact distance. But I think you guys can see if you're looking at my mouse, Armstead to Fields, about 2.5 yards away. That space in the National Football League, I probably don't have to tell you, but in case I do, it closes really, really quickly, especially when this guy, number 91, Eric Armstead, has pretty bad intentions and he has Justin Fields essentially dead to rights. And that space does close quickly. Even though we see that Fields is able to get a little bit more depth immediately, he has to create this depth, but on that second, third step, as he tries to create that depth, we see him stumble slightly as he tries to push his base of support out wider, and he almost actually loses his balance and gets tackled for a loss here on 4th and 1. And again, remember that those constraints, particularly it being 4th down, they're not going to get another chance, at least on this drive or this possession, if they don't pick up that 1 yard, is going to guide and channel maybe how each respective player is behaving or performing. It could constrain or fix and freeze the behaviors and get them sort of in this panic mode for those players who are maybe lesser skilled. And of course, sometimes stumbles, especially on a field like Soldier Field, feet have been known to get caught in the Soldier Field turf or grass pretty frequently, as well as it, again, losing footing, like I've already made the mention, or a player has a tendency to lose footing on it occasionally. But as he allows Armstead to crash on into him a little bit more, you can see he's not actually even looking at him here, maybe from the periphery, but even as he looks up, he can feel Armstead is in too close a comfort with him. So he knows he has to adapt, and ultimately, he's just in pure survival mode at this time. He knows that if he doesn't beat Armstead single handedly, and get out of the grasp of his tackle attempt, this play is going to be done and over with before it even gets started. A few things to kind of to look at as well. Even if we look deeper or wider from Fields's perceptual landscape or the perceptual motor landscape at hand here, we can see this relationship where he might be looking to go with the ball is even though right now his main concern is about Eric Armstead, number 91 here, any of his potential options, he already probably realizes and understands the options have become limited and he does have to take it into his own hands. You got probably one of the top 2-3 movement skill linebackers in the entire league, number 54, Fred Warner, right here, who is essentially lurking and spying, just waiting for Justin Fields to potentially roll out and attempt to try and escape the pocket, try to escape behind the line of scrimmage to actually be able to pick up this first down. He somehow shakes him by and shakes Armstead past. I want you to watch this a few times. He puts the brakes on. This is deceleration now in context, ladies and gentlemen. It's something to definitely pay attention to if you weren't looking at developing deceleration or any movement skill for that matter in context. This begins to show the importance of it right here, right now. So, perception action coupling, even though Justin Fields isn't looking at him in particular, we know that he's still picking up information about Armstead's location to him in reference to him. And he lets him run by because of his own actions, or he nudges him and it requires him to run on by, and he just shakes him past with a really light, stiff arm. But immediately now he is in that improvisational, adaptable mode. He's adapting within his adapting, the way that I like to put it. We see him, though, I know it's not overly clear. The resolution of this isn't all that great, but you can tell just even looking at the angle of his helmet, what and where he may be looking. So if we just pan that visual gaze on out here, he's trying to determine, do I have a path? Again, if we're looking at everything, the entire field, if we're going to describe the field, if you will, as a environment or a home for information movement coupling, or a home in particular for problem solving, this is a landscape of affordances that are present. And there's any number of things, a range of opportunities that he could potentially accept, or ultimately, as he's about to, reject. So he perceives in front of him, trying to determine now from the line to gain, the yellow marker here, from where he currently stands, almost a 10-yard distance. And I think he realizes right here, right now, that he is not going to have the opportunity to be able to pick that up. But yet, what we find from him, he takes 1-2 steps forward. Number 90 crashes on Kevin Givens here, the defensive tackle, is crashing in. You can see he's not in a great position unless, that is, Fields was going to run on this path. But he goes into his second step, right into a deceleration plant step onto this right leg, as we can see here. And immediately he's picking up other things within the landscape. He knows that he has help here in number 75, his own offensive lineman. He also sees a sea of white jerseys, a triangle of white jerseys, if you will. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 5 white jerseys, and he knows that even though there are still some opportunities here, the opportunities aren't all that of inviting. The attractiveness of those affordances is very, very, very small or little. So he plants his right foot into the ground and immediately tries to move from west to east or from right to left, from the weak side of the formation over to the field side. As he's doing that, additional defenders of the 49ers continue to come crashing in. Now we have those initial five, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 here, with Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, entering the mix as well. Again, my rookie mover of the year a couple of years back, guy coming off of an ACL, but still one of the scariest guys when it comes to being a predator, moving around the defensive backfield, without a doubt, in all of the NFL. But somehow, with these 6 guys, Justin Fields just trusts his athleticism to get him out of here. This is where we talk about affordances for action, and action leading into that which what a performer perceives. Our action capabilities, our athleticism, or other capacities that we might possess, and our ability to affect the world through our own action capabilities is always playing into that which what we're perceiving. So when we think to those 6 guys, this is a complex movement problem. Numerous interacting component parts, a highly intense problem, a very risky problem with a whole bunch of threat here. But Justin Fields trusts in his action capabilities, and he perceives upon the affordance to run this arc. Okay. And he knows that there is a ton of space over here where my mouse is for him to run to, especially when there's not only these 6 defenders that are crashing down, but there's a couple others that he's left in his wake already. So he trusts in this to move past and around, knowing that he has a bunch of help here now. And he knows now the first down is firmly in his sights. He's looking bigger and deeper within the problem. So as we think about this perception now in his potential affordances for action, the opportunities and the options have opened up considerably for him. And of course, there's always going to be numerous simultaneous as well as successive affordances for action being presented to the player, any player at any given moment in time. But the invitation strength of those affordances are really what comes into play here when we talk about our investigation. So that I kind of viewed as a bunch of local nested movement problems put together, but really just one slice or snippet of this respective play. As Justin Fields gets out into the open field now, he has, I believe this is Darnell Mooney, number 11, out here. He's got Jason Peters, his left tackle, number 71. And then he's got another guy, number 68. That would be, I believe, either his right guard or his left guard. I don't know who that is at this moment in time. I have it in my other notes. So he's got essentially a 3-on-2, because you can see a defender over here that's going to be cornerback Josh Norman, who's out there. And he's got a wide receiver who's going to perform or behave in accordance to how Norman is behaving. And that gives Fields a bunch of opportunities here, as we're about to see. So as we move this ahead, now at about 5-6 yards away, he's got Norman going to the sideline. All of that unfolded. Now, this is coming from this viewpoint, so we're going to have to speculate with me, if you would. You can see Norman trying to crash towards the sideline because of this amount of space here. And Justin Fields can perceive and pick up that information about Norman, along with the receiver here, who is his own teammate, who is going to behave, again, in accordance to Norman, in a dyadic relationship with him. And as he does that, he gives himself a number of options. If we watch it moment by moment, right here, he knows he's got options, guys. Okay. He'll be able to either attack this, knowing he's already got the first down, or what he's probably trying to set up, he's looking deeper into the problem and maybe even deeper yet off screen. Okay. So he likely, at least the most skillful, at perceptual attunement, sensitivity to the specifying information within the respective problem, looking at simultaneous successive affordances to act. And so you can see him, he's on his horse, but he slows down just enough to let Mooney get a place where he's going to wall off Norman. And now he being Justin Fields, has the opportunity to just snap this right foot into the ground here and cut back inside of this dyadic relationship that has unfolded between Mooney and Norman. Knowing full well, we now see Jesse James, his tight end, number 18 here, who is watching this interaction to determine where Fields could potentially go. Because once he gets past this interaction, that next landscape of affordances has essentially opened up. So if I'm looking at these slices of the game, he's now solved sort of this second main local movement problem that is relevant to him. And we're going to watch him come right to the backside of this. And if we look at where his perception is, this perception is deep and wide, okay, to where he is spanning that by keeping his head fixated, likely between not only James, but also free safety roaming around back here. I want to say it's number 29 free safety that is deep, really the last player to beat, even though there's a bunch of guys, as we can see here, chasing. He knows that they present very little threat. The ball is now in his court, so to say, and he gets a chance. The field ends up being his palette for him to go paint on with his movement skill. And we see him do exactly that. He's moving fast enough at an ownership speed here, as we can see, moving just fast enough to keep himself in control to get into this get into this space and get past this interaction between Mooney and Norman. Norman losing his balance, not really presenting a threat. This is a close interaction, though, between Fields and Norman. And he knows that if he's uncontrolled, he being Fields knows if he's uncontrolled and moving too slow, he could let Norman get back into the play. But his perceptual awareness, his perceptual sensitivity and connection is now mostly oriented, at least I would speculate, on this interaction up here and the space that exists not only between these two in this unfolding interaction, but to the sides of both of these guys in this interaction. And so now we see him moving at an ownership speed, lets him set up James to interact with. Again, I believe we can't see it right now. It's a little blurry. I believe this is the free safety number 29. Don't remember his name. You can tell that this is completely unscripted. I don't remember his name, but this free safety, he moves at a speed that allows James to essentially pull this blocker in. And boom, he has now gotten that defender into a never land. That interaction is going to take place. They are going to essentially intertwine and become interwoven with one another. And that affords Fields the opportunity to come to the inside of this interaction again, knowing that pay dirt, we can see the pylon right here, right next to my screen. Okay. We can see the pylon. So he's now inside the 10. And he knows that this huge green grass here is the most attractive, inviting place for him to go. That this interaction has taken care of itself because he had a two-way go back here. Watch right now. He has this two-way go. He can go to James's left or James's right, depending on, look at him right here. Look at his perceptual gaze. Okay. He's picking up, at least from my speculation, both the free safety as well as that space that essentially is just beckoning him to come to it. And we see him do exactly that. Nice and easy. He's got a teammate back here that I totally forgot about, but that guy obviously doesn't present a threat. If anything, there's just shared affordances for action that are taking place there. And of course, the young man, the rookie, can celebrate now accordingly. Let's just go ahead and watch that unfold and see if there's anything that we can see from the other view, as I showed you earlier. And let's just move ahead. And we pick up here. Again, still moving at half speed. So bear with it and bear with me. You can see how close this first interaction with Armstead really is. But he just shrugs him on past. Boom, we can see now some of the things that might be unfolding. Again, we're looking at this from a third person view, so caution always has to be taken into consideration here. But this caution, I think we can make some pretty firm hypotheses in regards to what information Fields was utilizing, what he was picking up, what he was utilizing, how he was utilizing it to regulate his own movement, skill, and action. And there he almost slips, goes back to that affordance of the Soldier Field that I was talking about. Almost slips here, does slip, but this complex problem, again, we can see how close some of these interactions actually were to getting him on the ground before he passes the line of scrimmage or the line to gain. Here again, he's got Fred Warner moving at high speed, but he's got a great guy out in an open field here, even though a little longer in the tooth now. In Jason Peters, one of the best to do it for a significant period of time. Fred Warner crashing, but he's not even concerned about that all that much, though I would say that his perceptual gaze may be picking up information not only about this space here where my mouse is, but also either one of these defenders. But he knows he's got numbers on his side. And like I said earlier, he takes advantage of it. We see him completely set up Josh Norman in that Mooney interaction. He knows right here, right now, Norman is coming too fast. There's too much space here that Norman has to defend, and that creates the cutback lane and angle for Fields as long as he can control himself, which he does, and he does so yet again by drawing him in. Cool stuff, like I said, like I mentioned earlier, from old from a not old Justin Fields. Justin Fields, the rookie, who obviously is relying on his true movement capabilities here, his true capabilities to adapt and improvise. This improv, now, not everyone is given the luxury and the freedom and the opportunities to improvise in the way that we just saw from Justin Fields. But if and when given the opportunity for the right types of guys, we're talking the Justin Fields of the world, obviously my mover of the year from a couple of years ago in Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, some of these types of individuals, if and when given the opportunity and they're playing backyard football, that improvisational nature of their movement skill, what their form of life is really built upon, starts to shine and show out. Additionally, what we find here is what I would refer to, we constantly talk about these qualities or these characteristics of movement that may have contributed to the player being able to solve that problem in the way that he did. I would say not only that improvisational skill led to this, but also a true movement intelligence with the ball in his hand. And you might say to yourself, well, he's just out there playing backyard ball. And how can somebody who's improvising and adapting truly show intelligence? But I think we saw it a number of times from Justin Fields in each one of those nested problems. When you're solving a complex movement problem, there were 6, 7 guys at times, numerous interacting component parts that were in a confined space with Justin Fields. And he didn't have numbers on his sides at certain points within that problem. That to me is a complex movement problem. And that when one solves that complex movement problem, then we can probably determine there's a certain degree of intelligence there in the ways that he acted upon it. And then finally, we saw in both the second and the third local problem when he was in the open field with Mooney and Norman, and then again, James and the free safety. So the second and third layers of this problem, we see from Justin Fields a metastable nature. that he's utilizing the interaction, the interpersonal distance between himself and the dyadic relationship between his blocker and the defender or the wannabe tackler. He's using that metastable region for him to have multiple opportunities and ways of acting upon the world. And that, guys and gals, is something that is so cool to see, because sometimes players are moving too quickly, too fast to have multiple opportunities to act. But we see it, in my opinion, quite clearly from Justin Fields that in both of those interactions, he could have gone left, he could have gone right. Not only could he have gone either direction, but he could have acted in any number of different ways. That, to me, signifies that metastable zone, that opportunity to act in a multiple different ways, that sort of keeps his opportunities to act much, much more open. There's numerous ways of acting, so he could still flexibly adjust if his opponent behaves in a totally different way. So a really cool play that obviously forms our movement play of the week, or is awarded our movement play of the week for week 8 of the National Football League season. Now, that was actually pretty fun to do, even though I realize that now you guys are probably fairly sick of hearing me talk about it. But instead of having to read my words in the way that I unpack the thoughts about this play, I thought it might be a good change of pace for us to do this more vlog video type of version. If it was something that you enjoyed, please go ahead and let me know. Let me know which way you prefer, and we'll kind of see which way we want to head forward. Maybe we'll do some alternating. Maybe we'll kind of intermix some things. Maybe we could do something in a live fashion or down the road. But let's why don't you let me know what it is that you prefer, and hopefully you found that this breakdown, this analysis, was equally as beneficial as the typical written one. Thank you, guys and gals.